Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of Go's most practical features, its built-in template engine. We're going to see how it lets you build dynamic, data-driven web pages that are, and this is the best part, secure right out of the box.
So let's start with a really basic question. You know when you visit a website, it shows your stuff, your shopping cart, your profile, your to-do list. How does one web page do that for thousands, maybe millions of different users?
Well, on one hand, you could try to write a separate HTML file for every single person. But, that's just not going to work. The much smarter way is to use a template. Think of it like a blueprint for your page with placeholders that you can just fill in with each user's specific data.
And that blueprint idea, that is exactly what Go's HTML/template package gives you. It's a tool that was designed from the ground up for exactly this purpose, creating dynamic HTML with a huge focus on making it secure and simple to use.
So you can think of it like this. Your Go code is in charge of the data, and the template is in charge of how it looks. This package is basically the bridge between those two worlds. It lets you take your Go data and inject it right into your HTML, and then the server merges it all together into the final page that shows up in the browser.
Now here is what makes Go's templates really stand out. Security is not an add-on. It's built in. By default, any data you inject gets automatically escaped. What that does is it neutralizes any potentially malicious code, protecting your site from common attacks, like cross-site scripting or XSS. And you don't have to write a single extra line of code to get this protection. It just works.
Okay, so how do we actually write one of these blueprints? Well, the syntax is pretty simple, but it's also really powerful. Let's break down the core components.
A Go template isn't just for dropping in simple pieces of data. As you can see right here, it can also handle logic. You can use actions like range to loop through a whole list of items, or you can use if to conditionally change how something gets displayed. It's this kind of logic that lets you build a truly dynamic page from just one single blueprint file.
Right, so the magic really happens inside those double curly braces. Anything you put in there is a template action, and that single dot you see, it's called the pipeline, and it is super important. It always refers to the current data object you're working with. So when you write double curly dot page title, you're basically telling the template, hey, on the current piece of data, go find the field named page title and print its value right here.
And this table here, this shows the real building blocks you're going to use all the time. You can render a field, you can use if for conditional logic, and you can use range to loop over lists of data. Honestly, with just these few tools, you can build pretty much any dynamic layout you can think of.
All right, so we've seen the template side of things. Now let's slip over to the Go backend and see how we actually hook up our application's data to that design blueprint we just made.
The whole connection starts by defining the shape of your data using Go structs. Now this part is critical. The field names you define in your Go code, like page title here, have to exactly match the placeholder names you used in your template. This creates a really clear, predictable contract between your backend logic and your front-end design. So the process on the server side follows this really simple four-step pattern. First, you define your data structures. Second, you parse the template file from the disk. Third, inside your web request handler, you fill up that data structure. And finally, number 4, you execute the template, which combines the data and the design, and you serve the result. That's it.
So step 2 is parsing. You use the template.parseFiles function to read your HTML template from the disk. Now, you'll often see this wrapped in a helper called template.must. That's a common Go thing that just simplifies error handling. If parsing fails for any reason, it just stops the program right there. And that's actually really useful at startup, because it makes sure all your templates are valid before your server even starts.
And the final step, this is where it all comes together. It's the execute function. This one single command is the magic moment. It takes your Go data, merges it with the template you parsed earlier, and writes the final HTML directly out to the browser.
Okay, so we've seen all the individual parts. Now let's look at the complete runnable code and see how these pieces all fit together to create a real working web server.
Now, the key to an efficient setup is all about how you structure your main function. You should parse your templates just one time, right when the server first starts up. This pre-processes the blueprint so it's ready to go. Then, all your request handler has to do is populate the data and execute that pre-parsed template for each new request. This is way faster than reading the file from the disk every single time.
So let's trace a single request from start to finish. Okay, the server's running, a request comes in and hits your handler.
The handler quickly creates the to-do page data and fills it with content for that specific user. Then, temp.execute combines that fresh data with the template that's already in memory. And finally, the finished HTML gets sent down the wire to the user's browser. That's the entire life cycle.
So, after all that, let's just boil this down to the key takeaways. What do you really need to remember?
Okay, here's what you need to remember. First, Go templates are built for security and give you a really clean separation between your data and your HTML. Second, that simple double curly bracket syntax is way more powerful than it looks, letting you add logic like loops and conditions right into your design. And finally, the whole server-side process is just a simple, repeatable pattern. Define your data, parse your template once, and then execute it for every request.
So you now have the complete blueprint, from the data structures in your Go code all the way to the logic in the HTML. The only question left is, what are you going to build with it first?